Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the No Contest Wrestling Podcast. It's good to see you. We hope it's good to see us. I am the heel that you love to hate, O'Shea Jackson Jr., a.k.a. Petty Guerrero.
Hey, yo, it's me. It's the TOOJIGG2JG.
And
TJ Jefferson.
We have a huge episode today.
Yeah, we do.
As you see, I'm in full Hollywood Shea form.
That's how you do.
And it's because we have the director of Queen of the Ring joining us, our man Ash Avildsen?
Avildsen, yes.
Avildsen. He said it's Swedish.
Yeah.
It's Swedish. You know, I'm trying. I'm just an American. But also a lot of huge moments in wrestling happen. I mean, Monday Night Raw, one of the best NXTs that we got for free, by the way.
That's right.
Wasn't even just
free
a PLE.
$3.99.
But yeah, TJ, what you want to run down, bro? What, like,
you know, just really quickly, because I know we got about
jam packed.
Yeah, we got a lot of time with Ash. We got a lot to talk about. But I was at AEW Revolution on Sunday.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
Was great pay-per-view. Swerve Strickland, our guy, defeated Ricochet. He's now the number one contender to the AEW World Championship.
And he will save the day once again. I'm just calling it.
Tony Storm and Mariah May, man, the Hollywood street fight. They finally put an ending to that story. Bravo. Tony Storm, as you know, is one of my favorites. Mariah May is fantastic. Those two took the whole All About Eve Hollywood thing, and man, they did such a great job. And this match was a bloody, violent affair, and they showed improved, man. So props to Tony.
Absolutely.
Props to Mariah for doing their thing. Kenny Omega, new international championship, defeated your boy Takeshita. Takeshita's going to be the man one day.
Bro,
he might be the man now.
Dude is box office. There's no way around him.
You know, Moxley defeated Cope and Christian Cage.
Boo.
I didn't love the end of that. But Kyle Fletcher, Will Ospreay, steel cage match.
Yeah.
Again, you two men, I want to give you props. We don't have a lot of time to dive into it.
Yeah.
But what an incredible match. These two did a Spanish fly off the top of the cage, amongst other things. There were thumbtacks. There was a nice little Mick Foley homage by Ospreay when he hit the bang bang.
Yeah.
Check it out if you haven't seen it.
It's a really cool picture, too. I don't know if you've seen the still of him like that.
Yeah.
That's solid. Well done,
Revolution was fun. Congratulations. And thank you. I have to say that to all the wrestlers for putting your bodies on the line for our entertainment, because every night you guys go out there, you're risking, you know, life and limb for some jabronis like us to sit and cheer and then go on the internet and argue about it amongst ourselves.
We have to.
Yeah.
That's what the internet's for.
And then NXT Roadblock last night.
Yeah,
that was dope. Fraxium and the Hardy Boys. Great match. Hardy Boys retain the TNA World Tag Team
titles.
And
also Fraxium getting a nod from Bubba Ray.
Yes. True.
Bully Ray, excuse me.
Moose and Obafemi. Man, big meaty men slapping meat, as Big E would say.
That's not what I called it.
But Oba, he defended his NXT World title after, and you have no choice but to defend your title when, before you hit the ring, the Undertaker stops you and says, I don't need to tell you how important this is. Yeah. Defend your yard. Go get you some. Yeah. When Undertaker goes, get you some, you got to get some. But shout out to Oba and Moose. They did the thing. And then Julia and Stephanie Vaquer.
Yes.
Title versus title.
Title versus title.
Incredible match.
Yeah.
These two women did their thing. I understand Julia may be injured, so that's why she, taking a little time off. But her and Stephanie.
There's also a lot of speculation with Julia because that hair is blue.
Ooh, and so what's that mean?
That hair is blue, man.
That's some video game stuff.
The IWC whispers, bro. The hair being blue, the blue brand calling.
Oh,
who knows, man? You did give up your title. Like, who knows, man?
True, that's
so
true.
It's something to pay attention to. Congratulations to Stephanie Vaquer. Man. Obviously, you are always box office. Can we talk about that spot when she's off the top rope right into the.
Yo, come on, man. The only person I've ever seen do something like that is Asuka. And Asuka's the GOAT.
Come on, man.
But yeah, man, just a great 48 hours of wrestling, or 72, I should say, between Sunday and Tuesday. And of course, Raw on Monday, we saw the steel cage match, our guy CM Punk against our guy Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
And then our guy, the tribal chief, came through.
Recognize or step aside.
Look, we all know that's going to be your triple threat, I think, for WrestleMania. Seth versus Roman versus Punk. Can't wait. I don't know if that's the main event. I don't know what's going on. All I know is I want to see in living color play Punk to the ring. That's all I'm asking for. And then you had Io, Bianca, Rhea
might be our other triple threat that we get to see.
That's obvious. That's written. Like the Rude Boy said, it's written all over your face. You don't got to say a word. Yeah. That one's already written in stone. The way Io reacted after slapping fire out of Rhea and Bianca's asses, people say that they don't. There could be a language barrier, but you don't need to speak her language. Her body language told you everything you needed to know. And her body language told us as she stood in that ring and stomped and pointed, I'm the champion. I'm going to WrestleMania. This is my shit. Yeah,
I'm not here to hear about a language barrier when she's fluent in hands. Right. Io Sky, bro, let everybody know I'm the goddamn champion of the world. Love us. And you will respect me.
Respect me like Pesci. And if rap was hockey, I'd be Gretzky. But that's some little lots type stuff there.
Just a side note, when TJ used to play pickup ball, he would rap while he would score on you. And I couldn't think of anything more infuriating than that. Because getting buckets.
I wasn't really a scorer either.
So when he scored, he busts a verse on you. Yeah, I'm going full above the rim.
I said something like with the with the boom ping ping baseline jumper like Bernard King.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
It would.
But nothing pissed me off about the wrestling that we got. Nothing pissed me off about a couple of things in Queen of the Ring. It's there are some moments that are a little hard to watch as a man who's raising a young daughter.
True that,
but. Our guy, Ash Avildsen, he brought it to screen.
Writer, producer.
Yeah, right? I forget the acronym he gave us, but the man wore many hats for this film. He gave us his time today.
Passion project.
We're here to help promote a passion project. As a filmmaker myself, when I see somebody passionate about their craft and it being an independent, if I could help, and it also fits with No Contest Wrestling, how could we not have them? So ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get to our guest. This is No Contest. Ladies and gentlemen, Queen of the Ring is a 2024 American biographical sports drama about female professional wrestler Mildred Burke. The film stars Emily Bett Rickards as Burke, with Josh Lucas, Tyler Posey, and Walton Goggins in supporting roles. It also has a bunch of your favorite stars from AEW and WWE. The film chronicles the life of revolutionary female wrestler Mildred Burke in a time when pro wrestling for women was illegal all over the country. A small-town single mother embraces the danger to change culture as she dominates America's most masculine sport to become the first $1 million female athlete in history. And today on the No Contest Wrestling podcast, we have the director of the film, well, a whole lot of things in the film, our man, Ash Avildsen. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for having us the other night, man. We had a really good time. Yeah. Went in, of course, with any film, you never know what to expect, but it's a fun ride from beginning to end, dude. You should be very proud.
It means a lot coming from you, man. Thank you. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you for the kind words online. Everything helps get the word out. It's so hard as like small indie films competing with like huge studios for the same theater space, and so all this stuff helps big time.
Yeah, I know a few things about, being in indie, so like I get it. What just starting off the back, since we brought up it being an independent film, the challenges that go into making a larger than life story with that type of budget. What were some of the struggles that I feel like you pulled off, but as, somebody watching the film, you don't really know the drama behind making it?
Yeah, I mean, independent films usually stray away from anything, period, because there's so many more moving pieces and just things that are bespoke to the time of the cars and the wardrobe and the location. So it makes it much, much harder. One of the biggest challenges from the production standpoint was just making sure we could get everything on the day, because there's a lot of different characters, there's stunts. We shot in the summer of Louisville. So as you know, like sometimes you're supposed to be sweaty and sometimes you're supposed to be not. Yeah. And when you have all, hair, makeup and period done up, and then the sweat starts coming because you're in, some 150-year-old building with no air conditioning, and you got to move the cameras around. And so it was just a very intense shoot in every aspect of it. But luckily the cast had such camaraderie. Like, it really did feel like everyone was like on tour being like carny wrestlers. And there was just this bond of like, trying to do the impossible of pulling it off as a small indie film. And I think that kind of spirit amongst the cast was really like our secret weapon to getting it done.
Right off the bat, though, what I want to jump in here with was I was at AEW Revolution this past Sunday, and something happened there that caused a ruckus online for the wrestling community. We all know how the IWC is. And it was Damaris Lewis, who portrays Babs Wingo in the movie. She said something live at AEW, which certain group of people took the wrong way, absolutely the wrong way, when she said, quote, "Y'all know you're going to win before everyone else does, so thank you for teaching me that." For some reason, like I said, a section of the internet wrestling community.
Yeah, the IWC, the scumbags that they are.
Took this the wrong way. Me sitting there, I was like, well, that sounded a little odd, but also having common sense, I knew that, okay, she meant this, not that. So with you being here, can we just put this to bed and you can clear this up for everybody so they can move on with their day?
Yeah, she's talked about it prior to that happening on video, so anyone can go reference it. I think those videos are now online from the LA premiere, and also even earlier that day on the AEW pre-show. She's talking about believing in yourself to be a winner. Like I'll put it right into this film. I had to believe that I could pull off making this movie and believe that I'm going to win, regardless of what the box office is, regardless of what the critics are, regardless of anything, saying like, I believe I can do it. I'm going to win before anyone even sees the movie, before anyone even sees if I get any name cast, if I get, the movie actually shot. What Damaris was saying is that wrestlers, they're putting themselves out there at such a level, and they may be someone that's going to constantly be booked to lose, but they're still a big draw. And it's not about winning or losing in the ring. She was not talking about the outcome of a literal wrestling match. She's saying the belief in yourself that I know I'm a winner, regardless of what the world is telling me. I know it inside. So when I go out there to pursue my dream, I'm not going to let the world knock me down. People took it in a very literal sense as if she's breaking kayfabe, but it's like, guys, come on, really? You think you think she came to AEW front row to be like, oh yeah, it's 1971 and I'm going to expose the business? Like,
yeah,
it's. I mean, maybe the silver lining is a lot of people are talking about the movie now. I mean, it's like the irony of
the no bad press, good press type.
Well, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of like WWE, like Netflix, like the first episode. Mm-hmm. So there's all these things where people are like, what's going to be like the big moment? And like the magic of pro wrestling is like, no matter what you think you're going to like make sure the audience does or does not do or feel or does not feel, at the end of the day, it's still like the carnival. It's still the theater. It's still the circus. And when Hogan came out as a face and he got booed into oblivion, that was the headline on every single tree. Yeah. That was the whole thing. It wasn't Rhea Ripley wins the belt. It wasn't viewership. It wasn't like the epic intro, which was my favorite part of like that intro to the show when they were going through, all the history. Yeah. It was like Hulk Hogan came out as a face and then he got booed. He's like, no, he's a heel no matter how you wanted to write him in LA. Yeah. And checkmate. So, anyway, that was a long-winded answer. But
no. We here at No Contest, we love a good answer. And let me let you know right now, and anybody watching, I lost my voice booing Hulk Hogan. And I'll do it again. I'll gladly do it again. Now, and honestly, to go back to the kayfabe thing, I mean, wrestling fans of a certain age, we understand what we're watching. We understand what's happening. And in this, with this film, what I've told people is, even if you aren't necessarily a hardcore wrestling fan, whatever that means, but like if you aren't a fan of wrestling and you're just interested, the film takes you along the ride with Mildred figuring out the business as well. And I know a few of the actors weren't necessarily watching pro wrestling every week. Can you take us through some of the process of getting them to kind of understand what it is that they were getting involved in?
Yeah, the fun thing about Emily is we have kind of like a little joke that's true. That's like, she didn't know anything about pro wrestling. And I didn't know who she was prior to finding out about her when I, offered her the role. Like I had never seen Arrow. So I wasn't familiar with her. And I found her looking around online at different like agents rosters of someone that I thought had the right look and physique to at least put them on a short list of like who could realistically in a matter of months be physically believable, because we weren't, we weren't going to get an actor to prepare for 2 years for the role. It's just not. It's too small of a movie. I'm too small of a director. It's like we're kind of getting who's available, and then we can go from there. And so I knew all about pro wrestling. Emily knew nothing. And I actually think it was good that she didn't, because she had more of like a blank slate to discover it as her character is discovering it, rather than having all these kind of preconceived, emotions and feelings and understandings of what the business is or is not. So that actually think worked to our benefit, that she just didn't know anything about it. And Francesca Eastwood didn't really know either. And she's the other fan favorite in a lot of the reviews, is like her as Mae Young.
Yeah.
So it just goes, I think it's a testament to them as performers and actors, that they were so believable, and people, whether they liked my directing or not, everyone really has loved Emily and Francesca. And they weren't wrestling fans. They were just actors who fell in love with the story and wanted to help bring it to life. So, but as you can see, there's Easter eggs, and I think it's obvious that the movie was made by someone passionate about pro wrestling that knows it. And I tried to tell it in the sense of keeping it true to the spirit of like a pro wrestling match and a pro wrestling feud, and all of like the story building, but doing it in a way that, hopefully you'll sit in a dark room for 2 hours and still be entertained, So that was all by design.
Yeah. And getting back to what you were saying earlier about like, these actors respecting the business. Like, I'm friends with Adam, who portrayed Gorgeous George in the movie. And I think I was telling you when we met, we had lunch back in September when he told me he was in this movie. And of course, I'm bugging out. Like, oh, dude, you got to tell me everything about this, And he was like, well, actually, another actor had the role. They kind of dropped out, so they need someone quickly. And I kind of stepped in. And then he told me how he went to OVW, started to train with Al Snow at OVW. And I was like, what was it like taking a bump? And he was like, mate, because, he's like, mate, it's crazy, mate. Like, just tell me how just like taking these back bumps. And then he goes, the ropes, they're still cables. And, so it's crazy to think that someone would put themselves through all that to learn, the basic fundamentals of wrestling, and then think that they would go out and disrespect it. It's just crazy. But can we talk about Adam real quick, how he jumped in there and portrayed Gorgeous George? Because I was telling O'Shea, I felt like Gorgeous George is another performer who deserves a movie 100%. In its own right.
His story is incredible. It's actually a really great. Tyler Posey's father has actually written, prior to me ever even meeting him, a fantastic Gorgeous George script that we're trying to get to the next level right now. And Gorgeous George story is truly phenomenal. I mean, he was selling, they called him Georgie boxes. Like, he was one of the main reasons people were buying TVs when they first came out, because that was the only way you could really see him is on television, unless you were at a match. But Adam was great. He came in right at the last minute. Logan Marshall Green was originally playing George, and then his mother fell very, very ill, and he called me like days before, and he's like, I can't leave my mom's side right now. I'm so sorry. And Adam got submitted as someone who was available. His agent also had someone else in the film, so they were immediately aware. And when I saw Adam, I was like, oh, he's great. Let me see if he can, not sound Australian. And he could pull it off. And I thought he was terrific as it. He tested really well. Because, when you're so close to your own art, you start losing, like, okay, is this still good? Is this not? And I was like, is Gorgeous George, like, does he need to be in the movie? I could get it shorter. I could cut out his entire character. I can still tell the story without any Gorgeous George. And then when we were doing audience tests, everyone was like, everyone loves him. Like, they loved him in the movie. And I'm like, yeah, I'm insane. Why would I ever want to get rid of him? I put him in there. I wrote it. But, like, just everyone out there who's critical of your own work, just know, like, it's easy to, like, get too close to it. And then you start second guessing it. And then it goes back to, like, the Damaris thing. Like, you got to believe, like, no, I put him there for a reason. I love it all. Why am I getting all in my head? Because I'm worried about, outside judgment, you know, and that's what Damaris was saying. It's like, pro wrestlers have to be that, because think about what you're doing. Like, how easy is it to make fun of pro wrestling in general as a business, as a sport, as an industry, as a performer, the wardrobes, the mic work, all of it. But like, no, you're putting yourself out there to be completely judged because you know inside you're a winner. Even if you're booked to lose time and time and again. How many times did Ric Flair fucking lose?
Yeah.
Right.
He's Ric Flair.
Yeah.
You know, like, so that's what she was saying. It came out wrong in the sense that it was easy to take it the wrong way. But it's also like, to the IWC, it's like, guys, really? Like if we were going to do, and she's standing next to the director, like if I was going to have her break kayfabe, she would be doing a full-on heel turn in the arena, being like, all you silly little jabronis paid your hard-earned money.
Exactly.
You know, they already told me what's going to happen backstage. She wouldn't say it in this very profound, eloquent, thespian way.
Go hard or go home. Right? Yeah, exactly.
It's just amazing, man.
So I'm glad we were able to touch on that. Like I said, let's put that to bed. Let's find something else to complain about and not this, and go see this movie, man. If you're a wrestling fan, definitely check this out.
Now, just to speak on George, I couldn't imagine watching that without George. Like, there's a few mini arcs in the movie that are happening off screen. Like, you're concerned about so many people, and George is one of those. You know, whether you're worried about obviously Wolf's son. I'm not giving none away, but like, man, whole movie I'm like, this poor man, he's not gonna get right. And then, but yeah, George is one of those, and he was such a staple in Mildred. It was like every time I saw George, Mildred got to kind of recharge her battery a little bit.
Exactly right.
It's a feeling of like, this is the silver lining of all this BS I'm going through, is like, there's a guy like George, you know, there's somebody like George. And so, I couldn't imagine this film without that. You know, it takes a lot for you to fight for your film. We're going to get into how long this process really was, but you mentioned Australians and their accents, and I cannot go away from my favorite AEW star, and Swerve, you just got to understand. But Tony Storm.
Your favorite?
That's my bro. I love Timeless.
Just you?
I don't know. You on camera too, bro.
I mean, you know. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, bro. Timeless Tony Storm.
I'm a Tony
dude.
Storm fan.
Tony Storm, you know, she once again, without giving anything away, she shows off her chops. Yeah. And she's a mimicker, bro. She can copy any accent. You know, she does it flawlessly. Talk about Tony Storm a little bit and what she brought.
She's the best. I mean, I don't want to get anything that would be, spun the wrong way or whatever, because AEW has been wonderful to us. TNA has been wonderful to us. As someone who, determines lineups on music festivals and just in general, like her match in AEW, both the one in Australia and the one that was in LA. I mean, to me, those are regardless of how it was booked, that was headline worthy, sold out Staples Center, Crypto Arena. Like, regardless of where it was, that was headline worthy performances, both from a wrestling standpoint and just a theatrical drama standpoint. Like, she's so great at playing that character. And what I've noticed, and I'm sure you guys know, because we're probably somewhere in our 30s or 40s, like, there's people that used to watch it in the 80s and 90s, and now they're like casual fans. They don't tune in every week.
We hear that a lot since we started doing this.
And Tony, I could tell, like, she started cracking into the casual, like, pop culture zeitgeist wrestling fan, going, oh my God, I heard this girl's great. And they start going on YouTube and they're seeing the promos. And so, like, to me, that's always the hardest thing, Can you create, for a federation and for a performer, like, can you create your own star? And Tony was great in WWE, but like, she has been created as a full-on star with Timeless Tony in AEW. And I think you can make a laundry list of WCW mistakes, but like, I think one of the biggest mistakes, if not the biggest, when you look back outside of like, the finger poke of death and, Arquette winning the belt and all these things that kind of took some of the magic away from it. I would say, like, on a cultural level, WCW's biggest mistake was that they didn't break enough of their own guys that were WCW stars. Who did you really have that was stood the test of time? And forgive me for people are going to judge me for this, but like, Goldberg was probably the biggest one, right? And then maybe DDP.
Booker T.
Yeah.
Booker T.
Booker T was big. You know, then you had your Sting, who was already.
But he was already there prior to Bischoff and all that with the
yeah.
blonde hair.
So I would say Booker T, DDP.
And I'm talking specifically like the Monday Night War era, you know, because they were paying all these talents. I mean, the whole thing's really amazing when you think about it. Like, love or hate Vince, he was like, okay, they're going to overpay all of these talent that I've already built up, and now I'm going to make new talent that he has, you know, better rights to. And he, you know, I mean, The Rock, Stone Cold, Mankind, Taker, these guys were carrying the company when they almost lost the war.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, one thing that breaks my heart just kind of watching what's going on right now is Kaylee, like, and I'm assuming this is just because there's too much great talent at AEW, so they can't slot everyone in. But like, one of the main things people are like, dude, she's fantastic in the movie. Mm-hmm. She has more screen time than Tony. Why isn't Kaylee like out and about?
And Kaylee, for those who don't know, is Camille Brickhouse, the wrestler, or Camille the Brickhouse, I guess, is AEW.
And I'm assuming, again, it's just like a bandwidth of like plugging everyone's stories. And I have no idea, but she's so great. You know,
it was her first time acting.
Knocked it out of the park. You know, it was actually similar to what I read about Rocky IV. Like, they needed someone that could just totally eclipse Stallone as the main opponent. And I think they remember Stallone remembered like Dolph Lundgren's like headshot from something else, because Dolph didn't have a bunch of credits yet. And he was, you know, he got the role because just his physical dominating his presence. Yeah. And that's how I felt with Kaylee, because we actually had some really named actors submit to play June. And it was tough because one side of me is like, oh, that's going to create a lot more eyeballs and awareness, but it's just not believable.
Can you share, and do you want to share some of the names or no?
I probably wouldn't, just because, but I can tell you they were named actors, but there was just no way they were going to put on the muscle mass in time. It was just impossible, you know? So we really got lucky getting Kaylee, and I hope she continues acting, because she's tested wonderfully. I mean, it's not even testing anymore. The movie's out. She's like, people love her in it. So.
Yeah, and her name's Brickhouse. When your name's Brickhouse, you got to be built a certain way, and she looks the part.
Yeah, I said on Instagram, you know, she's got action movie star all over.
Yeah, right.
And super sweet,
very nice,
like super nice. And that's one of the main things that you always want. At the end of the day, like when you're making a film, I gotta want to hang out with your ass for a couple months.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's a huge plus when trying to get a job. Now, I know from the director's standpoint, and you know, I keep saying director, but you had many hats on this. Exactly how long was the process of getting this from pen to theater?
Oh man, I mean, there were early drafts that were just me trying to first get the best, you know, what I felt were the best theatrical moments of the book onto page. But you know, I honestly, man, I got close to getting it to where I thought it was ready to be shot, like right actually around COVID. And then once that hit, I was like, I'm not going to do this during all the COVID rules. It's just way too dangerous for an indie film. I mean, especially with like the amount of sweat and physical it is, like, forget it. Like, it's so that really set it back a lot, was just waiting until we could not, you know, have our entire, you know, production be at the fate of a nose swab. In fact, the first week that SAG got rid of the rules, because I was in Louisville and I was like, we'll push a week. I'm not risking it all. I refuse to risk everything. It's too dangerous. We're just not a studio. We don't have that kind of money. Our first day of principal photography was like that first week where you no longer had to do the nose swabs and the masks to shoot a movie. And so as soon as that was done, you know, luckily it lined up with us and we could go. But yeah, there was no way for an indie film to try and make Queen of the Ring with the testing. It's just you're playing Russian roulette, but there's way more than one bullet in the chamber. You know?
I shot a TV series for Apple called Swagger. It was a basketball show, and I played the coach. And so we shot. It was still during the nose swab time, and it was one of the most difficult things ever, because not only like, we're testing multiple times a day, just you know, and every now and then somebody on my team would just disappear. Like, yo, where is he? Like we're supposed to have 5 on the court, or there's 4 on the court right now, and it's like, yeah, we're writing new sides. And so, all right, dope. And we had to have, me in particular, I had 2 masks. It was the mask that I wear on set, and then the hero mask that I have to wear during the show. So I'm having 13, 15-hour days, ears cut, like all of it was the worst. And shout out to Virginia, because I know I'll be giving y'all shit, and it's not your fault. But yeah, man, I can only imagine doing some wrestling, like that full-on contact and everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
We had to digitally put crowds in. It was rough, so I could only imagine what you would have to go through that. So kudos to you, man.
No, wrestling is, man, the world of pro wrestling, man, is filled with such characters and such stories. And you know, just larger than life figures. What made you settle down on the story of Mildred Burke, and what made you decide that this is the person I want to put a spotlight on?
I just thought I use the word enchanting. I was enchanted by the story in the book. I was mesmerized. I was hypnotized. The whole thing feels like a fairy tale, but it's true. You know what I mean? The shoot matches, the fact that it was illegal, which is insane.
That's crazy.
And by the way, for New York to hold it till 72, I mean, think about that. We went through Woodstock in 1969.
Right.
And you still couldn't get 2 women in the ring until 3 years later.
That's insane,
that's batshit insanity.
Yeah.
So that I grew up with a single mom. The single mom and son element of it was a big part. You know, the shoot matches, I feel like she's like the Tina Turner of pro wrestling. There was a very Ike and Tina dynamic with Billy and Mildred. So that was really blew me away. You know, another thing where some people are like, oh, you should cut it entirely out of the movie was the storyline with Billy's stepson. I mean, we're with Mildred's stepson, Billy's biological son. But those were one of the things where I was like, that's incredible, because when have you seen a stepson? I mean, again, this is spoiler, but whatever. Like, when have you seen a stepson want to, you know, marry his stepmom, and you're actually rooting for them because you realize they're close in age, and he is like the best, you know, this loving man who's, you know, helping raise the kid and is always tending to her. And I'm like, that's unique. That's a scene I have not seen before. Like the son asking dad, hey, I want to marry, you know, mom, but she's there's no romantic. It's just a business contract. The marriage.
Business contract. Yeah.
So all those kind of nuanced, very unique, you know, twisted beats. Like, not everything is good and evil and light versus dark. You know, it's like there's the nuance of the human experience, and those things in the book. I'm just like, this is just so interesting. Regardless if you care about pro wrestling at all, just the human elements of the drama between this, you know, what I called like the core 4, Mildred, Billy, and their 2 kids. Those 4, and just the unorthodox family drama. I was so entertained by reading the book.
When we were doing Straight Outta Compton, something that Gary Gray always expressed to us, and you know, a mixture of my father as well, and the team that put that whole thing together, is that the music is the icing. You know, the pro wrestling in this is the icing. The cake, you're like that. The icing gets you buy the cake in the bakery because it looks nice.
Yeah.
But the cake, you know, is that human element that you were talking about. Is those, and like I was talking about earlier, I didn't want to be the one to give the spoiler away, but yeah, man, you're looking at that arc of that poor of Billy's son. Like, man, like I'm really rooting for this dude. Yeah, from the jump, and you know, it really does give you so many things to worry about, so many things on your mind in this film. I always talk about, this is going to go on a weird tangent, but I do always talk about this. The other Jurassic Parks are just like, yeah, I get there, I get to the island, and you want to get off the island. That's the story. Mm-hmm. The first one, I'm worried about the kids. I'm worried about the security. I'm worried about the dude getting the DNA. I'm worried about, like, it's so much put together, and it all comes together in the end. And that's the same feeling that I got from this. Now, you've done that. You've accomplished your goal. Tell us, what were some of the difficulties of making such a, which I'm sure is a very R-rated situation, and making it PG-13?
So first and foremost, it was the Billy Wolf character. But both from a PG-13 standpoint and also from a standpoint of like, is the audience still going to relate to Millie and not go, what are you doing, girl? He's cheating on you. He's beating you, and you get out of there. Like, give it up.
That's what I was thinking. Get away from him.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and there really wasn't. Like, I give the analogy of like, imagine you're an actress and your dream is to be on screen, and there's only one producer, and his name's Harvey Weinstein, and that's the only one there is. Right. There's nowhere else to go. And you know and this is another thing that I loved about the book. In the film, she's beaten badly, and she explains why she can't go to the cops. And for the audience to relate to that and to actually understand, because she's a public figure, because she's this role model to all these kids, to then reveal that she stayed with her abuser all this time, it would just shatter her entire legacy, and there'd be this horrible stain and stigma on her. And the same thing with, not having the relationship with the son, because even though behind the scenes we know why it's a beautiful thing, but the public eye, it would be destroyed. Like, I think a lot of people agree with what Billy says, even though he's our villain, to his son, when he says it like, oh yeah, $1 million lady, a wrestling champion, leaves promoter husband for his own son. Yeah. Like, how's that for family optics? Like, that's not good. So it's again, it's these interesting human scenarios where it's not right or wrong. It's not good and evil. It's nuanced, especially because you're a public entertainer. And the other thing I draw to present day, going back to the Weinstein of it all, I'm not talking specifically about him, but just in general, in entertainment and in other careers, like, there's people that make it out the other side. And I'm sure there's people out there with Weinstein and with other monsters like that like, they make it out the other side and they don't go, hey, guess what happened to me years ago, because they don't want that stigma on their career and on their legacy. Think about it. If you already won Oscars or became, an A-list box office draw, and you went through some disgusting Hollywood stuff and nobody found out about it. Yeah. Do you want to go and say, hey, guess what happened to me? Or you might go, you know what? I hate that MF, but I don't want the attention. I don't want the headlines. I don't want anything to do with it. I made it out the other side. And so when Mildred decides not to call the police after the beating, I'm hoping anyway, like, the audience goes, I get it. I get why. Even though we want Billy to go to jail, fucking lock this motherfucker up. But we understand why Mildred doesn't call the police. And it's, that's just a heavy emotional thing. Again, outside of anything to do with pro wrestling. It's the icing, like you said.
It was the same with her mother, too, which made it even more like, she's dealing with this to her mom. And it was just like, ooh, yeah. Like,
and then again, the mom feels responsible, because when she's like, hey, look how far you got without a daddy. One day you won't need him. And she probably says, yeah, go back to the abuser, because this is your one shot to achieve your dreams. So it's heavy stuff, man. If only I had 10 more hours to really dive into all of it.
yeah, man.
And I want to give some flowers out. We talked about everyone else. Let's talk about Emily Rickard, who portrays Mildred Burke in this movie. And I'm telling you, man,
jacked.
She is, she's mesmerizing in this movie. Every second that this woman is on the screen, you can't take your eyes off of her. No. And I wanted to talk to you almost about the physical transformation, but I'm not familiar with her. Maybe she walks around daily built like that. Something tells me she probably doesn't, which shows that she put in a tremendous amount of work to get her physique to the point that it is in the movie, because she has, I don't know, maybe 13, 14 different bicep flexes during the film, where you're just like, wow. Let's give Emily her props. Let's give her her flowers, man. How'd she get this done?
She was so committed from the first day that she basically signed on. It was like, here's who I'm training with. Here's the diet. She, in between takes, she's chicken weights, like every, she didn't waste any time. And
you can see that pipe behind you right there. Yeah. In the shot. Look at her arms. Like, she's just ripped.
Yeah. And that's like the real photo. I mean, obviously they like polish it for a movie poster, but like, there's no like augmentation or anything. That's the raw actual framing of the body there. I was so fortunate to have her be the lead. And again, like the same way kind of Mildred was doubted that a woman could headline over men and actually blend, glamorous, glitzy, feminine energy with muscles. It was the same thing when, I would talk to people in Hollywood and they're like, oh, this is a period film and you want box office and this and that. And Emily hasn't had that role yet. And I'm just like, out of here with that, man. Like, I don't care. Like, take your foreign sales and this, that, and the other. And I just want to make a great movie. And I believe that if you make a movie that people like, it will find an audience. You still have to get the word out and do everything. But I bet the house on Emily, and I can't imagine anyone else being it. And that's been the biggest through line to every audience and critic review. There's a lot of people that love the film and they're like, I love it. And there's obviously the people like, oh, too many things happen, or, it's too old fashioned, or it's not art house enough. The biopic feels, too paint by numbers or whatever. That was by design to keep people on the ride and also appeal to a PG-13 audience. But the one through line, man, everyone's just like, Emily knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she, and it's exciting in the sense that she hasn't had that moment yet. There were two other record label guys. When I try and explain, like, everyone's like, so what's your, plan with Sumerian? And you have a record label, but you're making films. So Robert Stigwood did it with a guy named John Travolta with Saturday Night Fever. He was a record label owner. Travolta was a TV actor at the time.
Yeah.
There's
Carter.
Yeah. And people, that was like crossing the Rubicon back then. Oh, TV actors can't be leading men in the movie theater. And Stigwood was like, no, Travolta's a star. I'm signing him to a 3-picture deal. Okay. And he makes Saturday Night Fever, hit, Grease, hit. And David Geffen did it with Tom Cruise in Risky Business. Tom didn't have a bunch of big roles yet. He had done Taps, but he was early days, and Geffen was like,
Outsiders.
I'm
cruising, yeah.
He's like, I'll make the movie. Tom's the lead, but you got to fix the ending because the original ending to Risky Business, he didn't get into college. He's like, everyone's going to be bummed out. The movie's not going to work if all of a sudden he gets rejected. And they listened to Geffen because he held the cards, and Tom Cruise's character gets into college at the end, and Risky Business is a smash. But it's happened before in the sense of like people taking a risk. I mean, doing a record label, like the whole thing is like finding someone that isn't already established at some huge level, and you risk in them. And so for Emily to just deliver, look, we can talk about this. We all work in the business. For as many fans and hit shows and episodes that the CW has, there's a lot of people in Hollywood that are like, oh, it's a CW thing. It's the reality. Oh, it's a CW actor. Yeah. That doesn't mean they're not capable of winning awards. It just means that's what they're known for because that's been the most watched role they've had. So for Emily to come from Arrow to this, and I just mean that simply being like her perception with, the big agents and managers. Oh, yeah, she was on that CW show. Oh, she's going to be the lead?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, she's going to be the fucking lead. Watch this.
Right.
And what happens? So to everyone out there, again, back to the Damaris thing. Okay. Emily knew she was a winner. Right. She knew she was, I was the one girl from a CW show, and now I'm going to fade away into TV obscurity. Fuck that. She just delivered.
Yeah.
She did. She made me look much more experienced and talented than I am at this stage of my career. So thank you, Emily. The next one's going to be even better if I can find someone as good as you to be my lead in the next movie. But... that's what it's just what's inspiring about it, man. Because she was Mildred in her own right, coming into it. The odds were against her in every aspect, and there was so much doubt, which to me just makes it that much more vindicating and magical that she delivers. And everyone's like, regardless of what you think of everything else going on in the movie, Emily as Mildred Burke was a fucking win.
That was bottom of the ninth, bases loaded,
killed it,
grand slam, game over. Yeah, she really was.
Now, you said she was on Arrow. Isn't that the second star from Arrow? This is going off topic again. I'm sorry. The second star from Arrow to get into wrestling. Yeah, dude. The show is cursed.
Stephen Amell,
he's cursed with pro wrestling.
He's he was on Arrow. He went to Hills. He'd been in the ring with Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one last thing, not last thing, but we talked about the AEW star in there. Let's talk about the WWE star in the movie.
Yeah,
Naomi, Trinity
Fatu.
And I love the way that you portrayed the the black women wrestlers having a role in this movie? Like, obviously you didn't have to put that in there, but you did. And I know, we appreciated it. How was it working with Trinity, Naomi?
She was wonderful. I mean, she was just so, it's one of those scenarios where you're just like, I wish I could give the character more, you know? She was just a pleasure. She was I believe she was in TNA at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was easier to like get her to set and all of like the yellow tape because it wasn't WWE because it's just much more complicated. But she's just been so supportive and lovely. And even though she doesn't have a lot of lines, she doesn't have a lot of scenes, but to me, she just, in that hair, makeup, and wardrobe, it just feels so real. And she just like jumps off the screen. And I thought she did a terrific job. And I hope she does more acting too.
With, as you said, Naomi or Trinity Fatu, she was with TNA at the time. Also, Mickie James, or I believe she was with TNA at the time of you guys filming. Both are with WWE right now. And this film is a unique time where both kind of evil sides of the IWC have to agree on something.
Right.
So I really think this is a cool gem of a project in that sense. Bring people together, man. Both y'all can just enjoy
that tribalism,
have a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that we've talked about the film, we can't go anymore without giving away a really good piece of art. So let's talk about you, man. We want to know, when did you get bit by that wrestling bug? This is a question we ask everybody on NCW. When did you get bit by wrestling?
At a very young age, I would watch WWF Superstars. I was already completely invested by WrestleMania 6. So I think 4 and 5 are the first two I watched in real time. And then I went back to 3 and Steamboat and Dragon after I was older. And then 6 was the big one because my brother was Hogan and I was Warrior. Okay. And, the false finish and the ref was out. And I literally remember in our little bedroom, like cheering and going back. But I got it at a very young age. And I think one of the reasons I gravitated so much to like these like larger than life heroes was because I didn't have a dad at home. So I grew up in a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It was me, my mom, and my brother in 1 bedroom, my aunt and my grandmother in the second, and then my uncle slept on the couch. We had 1 bathroom, so we'd always like line up in the morning to go pee and stuff. And
I came in the house for 10 people in 1 bathroom growing up.
So it's until you've experienced that, you don't realize how nice it is like to have your own bathroom. Right? It's like, wow.
And I hate to even jump in there, but I got lucky when I moved out to LA. My roommate at the time was an actor, and he bought a house and he let me move in with him. And we were both like walked around the house one day. It was like, there's 6 bathrooms in this house, man. Like we both grew up in a house with 1 bathroom, And so,
I don't know how to answer this question.
Your dad would be a better representation.
So I fell in love with it because I saw these heroes that were real life superheroes. And so I found like positive male role models in the good guys and the baby faces. And so I was into it at a very young age. The time that I got into behind the scenes, I remember I was in New York with my mother. It was actually over a court thing before I'd ever met my dad, which, we can go into if you want to know about that trip specifically, because it's kind of symbolic to all this. But she comes in and I knew she knew I was like sad just because, it's a head fuck when you're that young and rejection by anyone, especially your dad. And she goes, "Hey, Undertaker and Ultimate Warrior are having a match in Madison Square Garden tomorrow." And I'm like, she knew Warrior was my favorite as a kid. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like that wasn't an angle on the television. So I'm like, no, there's no Warrior Undertaker. She goes, "Look, it says right here, it's a body bag match. What does that mean?" And she showed me the newspaper article, and I was like, oh my God, it's real. And I went from being like sad little broken boy to like, oh my God, I'm going to see the Ultimate Warrior in person. Yeah. Like I'd never been to a match. And, thanks Mom for figuring out how to pay for that because I'd never been to a match because, it was a different time. And we went, and sure enough, it was a body bag match. Undertaker zipping him up. The arm comes out at the end. It was awesome. But it was from that moment where I realized, wait, there's so much more to pro wrestling that's not on television.
Yeah.
And there was the house match of Taker and Warrior at MSG. that's when I started to realize, wait a second, there's way more to this than just like what I'm watching on the weekends on TV. And then from there, I just, I tell all my, I call them my civilian friends that like aren't into pro wrestling. I'm like, you have to understand, like, regardless of what happens in the ring, I get it. If the scripted theater meets circus meets sports stunt part of it is not for you, like actual in-ring action, the behind the scenes is some of the most interesting, compelling drama you will ever find. In music, you still have like unions and all these companies, and in film, obviously, you have a lot more rules. And you're like, but like the wrestling business, still to this day, and if I offend people, it is what it is. It's still a carny business. Period. And I don't mean that to be negative. I mean that to where there's no true rules, there's no unions, there's no you can and can't do this. Like we shortened a lot of scenes to like get the runtime down. But when Mildred asks Vince McMahon Sr., how can I get a guarantee that my women can wrestle in the state of New York? He answers that at the end, and he goes, Miss Burke, you are such a powerful force in nature, but the one guarantee I can give you about pro wrestling is that there are none. There's just no guarantees in pro wrestling to anything. You look at screw jobs. I always thought Montreal screw job was the only one that happened in the modern era. And then when I did research for Mildred's story, I found the Wendy Richter and the Spider Moolah screw job, which, by the way, Mickie James, she actually played Fabulous Moolah. We had to cut the scene out because it was a very quick kind of Easter egg, and she introduces herself.
We saw her real quick because I'm a huge Mickie James fan, so I remember tapping the elbow. I was like, there's Mickie, and then she was gone. I didn't realize she played Moolah until this morning, as a matter of fact.
So she gives that suplex, and then Billy goes like, I think we found our ringer. And then he's like, what's your name? She goes, my friends call me Moolah. And then Billy goes, well, that's fabulous. And then Mildred goes, do you trust her, Billy? And Billy goes, I don't trust anyone. And then June Byers walks in. But the problem was when we were going through it, we're like, it's going to be too confusing for the audience because there's already so many wrestlers in the movie. And we just introduced Gladys, and then Nell comes, and then the audience is going to go, wait, Fabulous Moolah, I need to pay attention to this person. And it's just like a one and done scene.
Right.
So that'll be on the DVD version.
Yes.
But Mickie was awesome. She also helped train too. She was at OVW helping all the actors, and she's just great, man. She is just a true blue,
super sweet lady as well.
Hard-working, all-American superstar woman, man. I love Mickie James.
Definitely.
Shout out to my busted open family, man. Mickie James.
Definitely in my top 5 favorite women's wrestlers of all time. I do want to talk to you about that a little bit later on. You brought him up, but you mentioned the Warrior, and who besides him were your favorites as a kid?
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Freaking.
I mean,
cup of coffee, man. Cup of coffee.
I'm talking to you, Ash, the guy with the big guns.
He was just so great, And I think for a lot of people too, as as so many decades have gone on, I think you could argue like who's aged the best as like a timeless pro wrestling character that just embodies all of the things that made pro wrestling so spectacularly famous and wonderful in pop culture. I would argue Macho Man Randy Savage.
Dude.
I would make that argument.
That'll argue back.
Yeah. I actually would say I think Macho Man has become that wrestling character that everyone was like, how are you not entertained by this person?
You could not.
There's no way. Come on, man.
I mean, he had everything, right? He had the voice. He had the look, like the outfits that he wore. People always want to get on Seth Rollins now about the outfits he wears, but I'm kind of like, what do you want him to come out in some boot cut jeans and a tank top? Like, these guys are larger than life.
Yes.
And Macho Man personified everything he did. He was 6'1". You couldn't tell me Macho Man wasn't 6'13" when I was a kid, because everything he did, from the voice to the beard to he was just larger than life, man.
When I fell out of wrestling the hardest was when, and again, whoever I'm offending with this comment, I'm just telling you my opinion.
You will always offend somebody.
Yes.
There was a time, this was like 2000. I don't remember the year, but it was after the Attitude Era, and it was before like what we're in now. But there was definitely like a window where all the wrestlers just started looking like guys that were working out at Equinox. I'm like, I see this guy in West Hollywood. Like, you're supposed to tell me this is like the pro wrestling guy. I'm supposed to go, oh my God. And it just became way too like, these are just like dudes at the gym like it became too like, I don't know, call it reality TV, but it just
cookie cutter almost.
Well, it just wasn't fantastical. I like the fantastical elements of the characters, and that's obviously like with Macho Man, and I like that Seth Rollins wears flamboyant. It's like if the gimmick is to not be flamboyant, fine. Like that's the gimmick in and of itself. Like you're like, I'm the real raw, dude that doesn't have the bells and whistles. But once it felt like that was becoming like the majority of the roster, that's when I was like, man, this is
not
just
the same.
Yeah, no one's standing out.
Yeah, you got to have the larger than life facade of all of it. Like, I say that with like music, right? Like when I'm trying to talk to artists about like creating who they are and what makes them unique, because there's so many people that are good musicians and there's so many good pro wrestlers out there, but why do you need to exist? Why does everyone need to pay attention to you? And I always do the silhouette thing. Like you can think of like Slash from GNR. He could be 15 doors down from you, 15 aisles down from you at Ralph's at the grocery store. And you could see it and you see a piece of the hat and the hair. You're like, that's fucking Slash.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sorry. There's no shade to the artist. It's just how a lot of people feel. You could have, who's a big rock band now? Imagine Dragons. You could have the fucking guitar player, the singer of Imagine Dragons buying a carton of eggs right in front of you. And a lot of people wouldn't even know that it's him. And I think that's what's happened with wrestling, is that there was a time where you could just see the silhouette, the black outline of any character, and you know who it is. And once the silhouette outlines stopped being so defined, that's when, for a while, I stopped paying much attention, because it just felt like it wasn't as bespoke and magical enough. It started to feel too normal. I don't want normal in pro wrestling.
Yeah, that's the same philosophy that they use. I know they use it when it comes to video games as well. The silhouette of Sonic. You know the silhouette of Mario, Crash Bandicoot. Yeah. Like when you're making a mascot. You don't know Crash Bandicoot?
No, I know Sonic.
We're going to get you a PS5. But we're going to get you right. But yeah, the silhouette thing is a great way to look at it, because it's what companies have been using to sell mascots forever. So, that's a great way to look at things. So it sounds like, that gap that you had was a time when wrestling broke your heart. But here at NCW, we have another question that we have to ask everybody. When is the first time, Ash, that wrestling broke your heart? When I bring this question up, we've had some people say when The Undertaker, his streak, ended, and then Bailey said when Lita and Edge kissed. So when was a time where wrestling broke your heart? Our guy CM Punk, our very first episode of this, what do you say, WrestleMania 9? When
the WrestleMania 9, when Bret Hart to Yokozuna, Hogan comes down and Bret lets him go in, and
that was fugazi, man. I remember that. I remember that the Caesars, the outdoor. I was with my cousins in Maine, and we watched it in their game room. I remember that exact thing, because we were like, "Oh, this is cool. It's at Caesars. It's outside." And then all of a sudden, that come, and it was like this weird, like pseudo squash moment. And it was like so. That one. But you know what? The one that I remember, I'll tell you, probably the one that like broke my heart, shattered my heart, like made me want to go throw up in the fucking back. The Halloween Havoc Warrior Hogan rematch, man.
With the fake trap door and
that's a lot going on.
There was a lot.
That was like to like draw it to like. And again, this isn't my opinion. Okay, my opinion's out of this. My opinion on Halloween Havoc's terrible. I'm removing my opinion from these films because I think I'm a huge fan of Joker 1, and I see why people didn't like Joker 2. However, there's a lot of great in Joker 2 as well, but I see why people were so let down. Warrior Hogan 1 to Warrior Hogan 2 is like the Joker 2 of wrestling.
Okay.
Because like WrestleMania 6 was like, that was one of the most, in my opinion, that was one of the most iconic matches, because it was two faces against each other, which is what Mildred Burke and Claire Mortensen was with Tony Storm's character and Emily. Like they knew they had two big draws, and neither one of them was a bad guy, and we got to put them together for the sake of the headlining business. That Halloween Havoc match, man, what in the world? And then some sparkle, like what do they got, like a firework thing? And it gets just a disaster.
Yeah, because it had that build up from WrestleMania 6. So we're all like, oh, the Warrior's back, Hogan's
It's going down.
That's it. This is it.
Yeah, it did not live up to expectation.
No.
Whatsoever.
You got
By
two,
the way,
two
it's at
gimmicky.
Halloween Havoc. Like what?
Yeah.
That's not even like their WrestleMania.
No, we gotta sell these ticks,
Should have
baby.
been Starcade or something.
Yeah.
You know? Like, come on, man.
That's a solid one. Is that our first? Is that our first W?
It might be. It
Might be our first WCW
one.
moment that was used in there. You've made history at NCW, bro. Congratulations.
Wow. So you guys don't even discuss the WCW.
Oh, we
No,
do,
we
but
do,
this is
but you're the first one to
time
mention somebody, mention
yeah.
a moment from WCW.
Oh, as the heartbreak
As the
moment.
heartbreak-
Yeah, as the heartbreak moment. Yeah,
Okay,
man.
that makes sense.
I think we've done like this episode 23. I don't think anyone's
Yeah.
mentioned it.
Yeah, no, I can't think of any.
No,
Maybe Bischoff.
Right? Let's hit them with the most popular question we got. Right?
Oh yeah, our number one question. Okay, now there's a situation. You're at a bar, okay, and there's 50 dudes in that bar that don't want you in there.
They're part of the IWC that are mad at Queen of the Ring. They're
Yeah,
mad at you
okay.
for some reason.
So I need you to pick a team of you and 4 wrestlers to make sure they get Ash to the car.
Well, let's give them 5. It's,
Yeah, all right. Let's give you 5.
We'll give you 5 wrestlers.
Haku, right?
All right, thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Good one.
from what my understanding was, he was the most lethal out of everyone.
Yeah, he rips throats out. Apparently,
Yeah.
Bites off noses and
Yeah.
gouges eyes and things.
You know,
I'm going to take Junkyard Dog.
JYD.
Solid,
okay.
solid.
Because I believe people are just, the fact that he's called a Junkyard Dog and he looks the way he does, people are going to be like, maybe I shouldn't swing at this dude.
yeah, perhaps.
Especially, have you seen like early Mid-South JYD before he came to WWE?
Yes, because when I watched the Dark Side of the Ring episode, I didn't realize so much of his story.
He was looking like Shelton Benjamin, Bobby
Yeah.
Lashley.
Yeah?
JYD was.
Okay.
Yeah, he was on swole.
That's like one of my dad's favorites.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking like, okay, like maybe Shamrock because
Ken Shamrock, dude.
He's the
Yeah.
world's most dangerous
Ken
man.
Shamrock.
Give me Shamrock in there. This is a great question. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you, man. Everybody loves to draft.
Yeah. and then honestly, man, I think I'm taking Mae Young in her prime.
Okay.
Oh,
Because
nice.
she would fight the dirty, and people are going to be, oh, I can't hit this girl. And she's like, that's fine. I'll fucking rip your dick off right here.
Right.
You know, I need a woman on it because that's going to make men go. The 3 men, I hope, wouldn't attack the woman, but the woman's going to,
Yeah.
Mae Young's going to get it done. So that's 4.
Yeah.
Mark Henry's gonna love that answer.
Yeah.
He
Mark
speaks
Henry
so
would be a good
highly
one to have in there, too.
You know, but Mark speaks so highly of me. All right,
So
and
we
then,
need one more.
Yeah, one more.
Who's the, I mean, are the 50 people in there, are they drunk or sober?
Haven't had.
They're at a bar, so they got to come
They're
in.
haters. You know,
Yeah.
they've been drinking, hating on you. So yeah, they're a little buzzed. If you're hating sober, you're crazy. It's
Yeah.
a genuine disgust.
I mean, I'm trying to think who's like the most lethal in the fight would be. And it's any decade.
Anytime. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, as long as you've been a fan, man. If you've seen it with your eyes, go ahead.
I mean, I think I'd probably say. I mean, Brock Lesnar seems like a good
That's
guy.
a solid
Yeah,
response.
give me Brock.
I think you can go wrong with Mr. Lesnar.
Yeah, I think Brock's good in there.
And I love that you said May because,
Yeah.
you know, I made our show's Instagram post about, you know, going to the premiere and everything. And I wrote about Mae Young. Like, it was awesome to see a young Mae Young because
Yeah.
we all started to know Mae Young when she was older. And we're like, how is this old woman able to take, you know, power bombs from
Tough as
Bubba
nails.
Dudley? And then as I personally start to research a lot more about wrestling, I realized that like Mae Young was the toughest dude in any room she walked into. And
Johnny Mae Young.
Johnny Mae Young. So it was like amazing to see Francesca Eastwood bring her to the main screen, you know, Clint Eastwood's daughter, correct?
Yep.
And so that was awesome to see. And to see, like, you know, just a different side, a different age of Mae Young that we've all been accustomed to seeing. It was great to see that and to know that this was a tough
Badass
woman, man. Like, she messed you up.
Yeah, she really. I mean, I hope we get to tell more period wrestling stories because some of the news articles I found, her arrest in Reno, Nevada, she'd beat up dudes at bars. Like these women, like I guess this is the other thing that I had to tone down and make it more of a PG-13. And if I gotta do a Gorgeous George movie, that's going to be, you know, much more R, just because, not necessarily just because of him, but just to show the more grittier nature of the times. These women were outlaws. Like, they were actual, like, outlaw. I mean, because they had to be outlaws just to wrestle in a lot of the states, because they were showing up to be like, yeah, it's illegal here, but we're going to do the show anyway. But they really were. They were gangsters. Like, not gangsters in the sense that they're like gang banging, but gangsters in the sense that, like,
they were real with it.
Yeah, and they would like, they'd fuck you up.
Yeah. No problem doing it.
Yeah,
either.
and they're like, yeah, I'll go to jail tonight. I don't give a fuck, and I'll make bail, and I'll make my match 10 hours down the road, and I'll drive through the night.
And then I'll see you again and do it all over.
Yeah. They really were like gangster women in a time where the world was saying it was illegal, and then they started drawing more than the men. Like,
listen, there was been a resurgence lately. It was, the women's revolution in modern day times. And there's been a lot of situations where I'm more excited to see the women's rumble. Okay. I'm more excited to see the women's Money in the Bank match or anything. And then when you see over in AEW, just some of the massacres that the women are putting on over there, the draw is there. The draw is there.
It's wrestling right now.
And that Rhea Ripley Charlotte Flair Mania match.
Whew. That was a banger.
Wow. I mean, that to me is one of the greatest women's matches of all time.
I can agree with
What's that? That's 39?
That was 30. The one here in SoFi.
Yeah, Shay was there.
Yeah. I was there.
That was 2023?
3, because 24 was Philly.
Yeah, because it was
in SoFi here, yeah.
Yeah.
Philly, I'm sorry, you should never get a Mania again.
Why?
It's freezing, bro.
Right.
Put a dome on that.
Night one
my God.
At the home of the Eagles. It
hurt to clap.
Freezing night one, yeah.
Oh, man. Outdoor stadium.
So here's another thing. We talked about Mildred and May. What other wrestlers? And I don't know if you even want to answer this, because maybe you're like, I have an idea and I don't want to say it. I want somebody to steal it. But, like, what other wrestlers do we feel are worthy of, getting the big screen treatment? I know there's a few I'd love to see. I feel like you, O'Shea, and I should produce one or two that I've got in my mind.
Yes, let's go.
Yeah, don't say I'm over there.
Well, definitely Gorgeous George. And also Gorgeous George with Jim Mitchell being a big part of the story, because their feud was just fascinating, including what happened at the Olympic Auditorium in L.A. when the riot broke out because George getting the dirty finish and Jim was over as a babyface. Also, to my research, the first person to use Black Panther as a moniker or a stage name in any type of entertainment. I could be wrong, but we did a good amount of research, and it was this Kentucky wrestler named Jim Mitchell, who was the Black Panther of the mat. I've looked into Savage. Savage is hard to find stuff on. There's not a lot of books or really anything out there, but just knowing what the love story and the heartbreak, Miss Elizabeth, and then the Luger of it all, and the OD. I mean, man,
I actually do have a Savage. Now that I think about it, someone sent me a Savage script from Lanny.
No way.
Something. Yeah, I have to check my email. I know this was like 5 years ago. But yeah, I definitely am sitting on one a friend of mine had, and he goes, I know you like wrestling. And he sent me the script, and it was, the Randy Savage story. I don't think anyone's doing anything with it.
I'll tell you, too, another one just to see how it ended, because the ending's so surreal. Like, I actually managed Warrior for a while, many, many years ago.
Oh, really?
I have a lot of wild Warrior stories. We made a TV show. You can see it on YouTube. It's called The Warrior Show, and it's like the Ultimate Warrior putting these rock bands through these crazy, like, mental, physical boot camp from hell workout regimes.
Oh, man.
It's actually really entertaining, and then... I don't want to like speak badly about someone that's passed, but like the sad thing is we started actually getting a lot of interest, and I think this is not to like throw shade at Warrior. This is more so I think just the challenging nature, because wrestlers for so long didn't have agents and managers. It was like them negotiating directly with the promoters, right? Warrior always had a sense that like someone was getting one over on him, or he wasn't getting what his value was, because he knew his pop culture value, but he was still a wrestler and he was still in that box. And so once we started getting all this momentum on the show, he was like, well, I need $1 million to do another episode. And I'm like, dude, you own the majority of the show. I was like a minority partner. I was like such a fan. I'm like, you're entertaining outside of the ring. Like, and you're so into, physical health. Let's do this show. And I asked him, I go, how much money did you get to come back to fight Warrior and Hogan? He goes, oh, it was $1 million deal. And I was like, for even more than just that match. I'm like, Warrior, you want to get $1 million to do a reality show that for season 1 per episode, the same amount of money you were getting to fight Hulk Hogan, your biggest moment, like your biggest rematch, like, that's like, I don't know, think of the huge tentpole movie, and then they're finally get the actor to do the sequel, right? Like how much money are they paying him to do the So that was sad in the sense that all thing kind of fell off because Warrior trying to, represent himself with finances. But his story is pretty wild, I will say, and especially seeing as how he became this father to his daughters, him having to change his name to own himself. Like he literally called himself Warrior. His license said Mr. Warrior. Yeah. Fascinating lawsuit with Vince. Jim Hellwig, Warrior, also didn't have a dad growing up. He found like a father figure in Vince, which is why the whole thing was so sad when he would tell me these stories. He was very close to the family. And then to see how he passes, I mean, that was the most unbelievable thing.
It really was.
And to get the speech off, too.
To get the speech. And he's basically saying his own eulogy.
Yeah.
That's what was this
and then the next day, you could not. Could anyone write a more unbelievable true ending?
Bro.
I mean,
when I started getting text messages about that and went online, I was like, it was like 9 a.m. when so it was early. Yeah. And there was a guy who took a picture with him in the airport like hours before he passed.
It's just devastating. Man. And I think the lesson there with Warrior's life, what would people take away from it? Like with Queen of the Ring, obviously believe in your dreams, believe in yourself, fight. Don't let the world tell you you can or you won't. But there's a big, parent and child moment there, right? Like the family. The family can go beyond blood because May wasn't related by blood, but they were blood in the story. And then her own son, which is her blood. So there's that element to it. But for Warrior, and I would say this is for Vince McMahon as well after watching the doc, it's remembering that, the ego is not your fucking amigo.
That's been my saying for years.
The ego destroyed, because Warrior's downfall was his ego. He meant well, like he wanted to entertain and inspire people, but his ego was what messed it all up because it became too much about money. It became too much about ego, pride. I mean, even though I thought it was great when he wore the shorts saying this means more than this about the Warrior Savage retirement. It was before Slaughter Hogan, right? Was that WrestleMania 7?
WrestleMania 7.
It was, or 7 or 8.
8, I think, was Warrior Savage. Wasn't that 8?
Warrior Savage, like retirement match. And then Hogan Slaughter was headlining and Warrior wore the trunks that said like, this means more than this. So like basically saying like
talking about how their
retirement match had more weight than the Hogan Slaughter headlining match.
Yeah.
But the ego, and then when I watch the Vince doc, and people can say whatever they want about Vince, but he's the reason, it became the spectacle that it is, and it reached notoriety, and also like the WrestleMania MTV moment. I actually became really good friends with Les Garland, who was the co-creator of MTV, who was there during all that, and I have a script. I didn't write it. I hired a writer to write this for me that just spent a year and a half researching everything, but you see, and by the way, this is going out there, so we might need to get on this one and actually get this made because it's a good idea. You saw Air, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So it's Air, but the deal is MTV and WWF getting together to make WrestleMania 1.
So the Rock and Wrestling connection would be in there with Cyndi Lauper.
And the MTV WWF partnership and everything that went down and the brawl to end it all and all of the drama. Apparently, there was a scene where the MTV execs and the WWE execs and Vince was arguing of like, well, we think what we just did, MTV's like, well, we think, we just gave you your biggest, draw and viewership, and, we believe that we should own a piece of WWE now. And Vince was like, oh, that's funny. Okay. Vince was like, that's funny because I thought I was going to ask you to own a piece of MTV for what I just did for you. And they just had this big blowout, which is really sad because, like, if they would have figured out a deal, God knows where it all would be right now between MTV and WWF. If they would have figured out how to be partners, if they could have found their, I don't know, what are the two, when two companies get together,
like a merge or
like, yeah, because we see it now, right? There's
collab.
Disney and ESPN are like one company.
Synergy.
If they could have figured that out, but it's a crazy story of how all that was coming together, and they made that deal and all the personalities. But I just went on a tangent about that. What were we talking about right before that? There was that Warrior. Oh, Vince. Yeah. So the family of it all. So when I watched Vince's docuseries, all Shane wanted,
man,
dude.
All he wanted was his father's acceptance and his father's love and approval. And he always felt he had to overachieve. And we've never talked about this, and we obviously just, became knowing each other. But like, your
Perfect
dad's Ice
segue,
Cube.
bro. Yeah.
My dad, like, people are like, like the fucking self-inflicted weight of like, my dad made Rocky and Karate Kid. He had plenty of duds, but obviously, he made two of the greatest of all time of like an American sports underdog film. And here I am making this without a studio behind me with way less experience. It's like the self-inflicted weight, and Shane put all this weight on himself with Vince. So to see that Shane wanted to buy the UFC, dad says no, only for the UFC to end up buying, essentially the UFC buying WWE. Vince is out, and all he had to do was keep it a family business. All he had to do was tell Shane and Stephanie, hey, this is my whole life. It's my existence. You're my kids. I have unconditional love for you. And you obviously love the family business, and it will be yours. But maybe he pulls the Hugh Hefner and the Playboy Mansion. He goes, hey, you can buy it for me. You guys own it, but I'm living here till I die. And once I die, then it's all yours. Instead of just reminding family, right?
Yeah.
Keeping it family, what does he do? The ego. I need it to be bigger. I needed more power. I need more of the wild and the unknown. And the greatest worker of all got worked.
Yeah.
He's out.
It's deep.
He's out. The greatest worker of all got worked. And all he had to do was just keep it a family business and tell his son and daughter, you know what, kiddos? I'm still your dad, and we did this together, and one day it'll all be yours, but can I hang out and keep doing it with you?
Man, that's a way.
Dude, you have no, like, from the jump, I've always wanted to have a conversation with Shane or with Stephanie of just like, number one, every second generation, our stories are different. Like, our stories are way different than each other's. I talked to a lot of sons and daughters that are second generation, and we all got different stories. It's just, it is what it is. And to get Shane or Stephanie's perspective on growing up in that, and not just being like, because, we've spoken to Carlito, who grew up in the business on the, the wrestling side. His father ran a promotion. Running the WWE is like, I need to know. I need to pick the brain. And it was never a situation where I'm there to necessarily talk about Vince, but just their perspective on things. And Shane was putting his body on the line in the craziest ways.
Oh my God.
That 32 where he jumps off the cage and Taker moves, and that's the I love you. I'm there. I was there, dude. And like, to be there, to see that, it's on my Instagram. And him, I put him in slow motion, the fall and everything. And to know that moment led to what we saw, I just wanted to pick his brain on that. Yeah. And I can only imagine much power to Shane McMahon, dude.
I mean, that would honestly be a movie, like the son constantly chasing his father's.
Shane O'Mac.
You know what I mean? Like, God.
Yeah, man.
I mean, the whole thing is, regardless if it's all subjective. Is WWE way better or not better with or without Vince? Regardless of all, that's all just opinion. But like, just the human element of it all, to see, what we've learned, even just with the Vince and Shane dynamic, and that, I mean, because is Shane involved in it anymore, or is he?
I don't believe he is.
Yeah, definitely not publicly.
Yeah,
it's nothing that fans have done as of late, but speculate. There was talk about him being in an AEW storyline for months until that died down. There's just the one thing about the IWC is we all think we're getting worked. we're all thinking like, this is a lie. This isn't really happening. And like, that's just wrestling. Yeah. So, you know, we don't know, but anytime I hear, here comes the money, I'm going to pop. Yes. I'm going to pop. Now, you know, before we let you get out of here, I do want to talk about, because I just brought up being second generation and things like that. What was it like knowing, like, I'm going into film, you know, with who your dad is and things like that? What are some of the things going through your mind? What's the relationship like, if any? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, because we want to let people know your dad, John Avildsen, like you brought up, directed Rocky, won an Oscar, the Karate Kid movies, you know, like, so you do have like this place in some of the greatest sports movies of our youth growing up, man.
Yeah.
So,
you know, it's funny. I'd actually love to get your guys' take on this. We're trying to figure out how can we get like just some more awareness for Queen of the Ring in the theaters now. And technically, like if you go on Rotten Tomatoes and you look at like top movies, sports, we're the #1 sports movie in America, but we're like the only one in the theaters.
Hey,
so
take
like the #1 sports movie in America, the only sports movie in America,
right? You know how many times that's happened?
Yeah,
bro, I don't give a damn.
And then we someone, my marketing guy was like, you know what, you could do the #1 sports movie in America with the #2 most interesting fight in America. You know, Blake and Justin, but here's Billy and Mildred. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
crazy. That's crazy.
Because like even if we have a new trailer, but I'm like, the stuff that works on social media, it's not even like the high-end trailers. It's like these like more raw, fun things that just end up what everyone shares. So I'm like, I don't even know if we drop a new fancy trailer. We need to drop something that's clever and funny. And
listen, Den of Thieves 2 came out January 10th. We said the best movie of 2025. Came out January 10th, bro. Use that. You gotta use it, right? Yeah, you have to.
Use what you got to get what you want.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, so my dad, so I was born with his last name. I never knew him as a kid. It was a head fuck because I loved his movies. Yeah. People knew who he was. So I go to elementary school. Hey, what's Mr. Miyagi like? Like, I don't know. I've never met him. You know? So there was that element. And then it was actually on that New York trip where I saw Taker Warrior. It was my first time seeing my dad in the flesh.
How old were you?
This was like 12, I think. It was. I started going to a co-ed military school in the 7th grade, even before I hit puberty, because in the 6th grade I started just getting into a lot of trouble. I was like a straight A student in elementary school. 6th grade I started hanging out with the 8th graders. I'm drinking Mickey's malt liquor. I'm smoking cigarettes. I can't even inhale. I'm skipping school to do graffiti. I was growing up in DC. I was like totally, off the rails as a young, I mean, this was before puberty. I look at like 11, 12-year-olds now. I can't imagine the shit I was doing back then.
Right.
And so my family like put money together to get me sent to a military school because they're like, he needs like some positive male role models. Sadly, WWF superstars weren't going to get it done. Yeah. Even though that's now it's like, we needed someone in person doing it. So after the first year, my family ran out of money, and they were. My mom was in, basically a New York family court case with my dad, trying to get him to pay the tuition for the military school, and I had to go there and testify, basically saying why I believe I should get the tuition paid and why it's important. Oh, wow. So my dad he's about the distance you and I are aside, except we're both facing towards the courtroom door, and he's wearing. He's reading a newspaper, and I remember exactly what he was wearing. It's one of those like just exact memories, right? Yeah. The color of his socks, the way his legs were crossed. He's reading a newspaper. I look at him, a little kid. I'm like, oh my God, this is my first time seeing my dad. Wow. He never looks over, goes into the courtroom, and I don't see him again for 20-something years.
Man.
And my therapist says that was my moment of annihilation as a child. And with specifically boys that grow up without fathers, they're usually one of two things. They either overly compensate and try to overachieve, or a lot of times, I think the statistics like 65% they end up in a life of crime, poverty, violence, or drugs, which is another thing that drew me to Mildred Burke's story, because it was the single mom. Mm-hmm. She didn't have a dad. Her son didn't have a dad. And that moment was forever in me. Now, once I met my father and we became the best of friends on our first birthday together, he's like, I want you to ask me the hard questions. And I asked him about that, if he remembered it.
What brought you two together?
Actually, I've never said on camera actually how the meeting, like how it actually happened. So he, whatever, it's all true. I'll share it. My mother had I love her to death, and a lot of this is from the trauma with the lawsuits and everything with my dad and, you know, substance abuse. But she was manic depressive, bipolar, alcohol problems. But she was also my Millie mom, like always pushing me to believe in my dream. Again, this goes back to not everything's good and evil and light and dark. It's like she was a big reason I became successful because she always fought for me. Yeah. Like no matter what. And any insane idea, I'm going to be a singer in a band. I'm going to move to LA and start whatever it was. She was in the fight with me, but she had her own demons. And you know, I don't know how I didn't end up an alcoholic, but alcoholism is in a lot of my family genes on my mom's side. And so she was still battling very intense alcoholism, and she was basically squatting at my house and getting drunk and driving me insane. And so I called, she was just being completely neurotic, and I called the cops and I said, come to my house. I go, I don't want her arrested, but I got her a home in Palm Desert or La Quinta, and she needs to leave here because my girlfriend at the time, she was fighting with her. She was just being insane. She's drinking vodka at my house. I'm like, you got to leave. She doesn't live here. I literally bought her own house. Like, get her there. So the cops come and they're like, look, she's too drunk to drive. What do you want us to do? I go, if we don't arrest her and she can't drive, like you want to take her to, I was like, okay, I'm going to leave tonight. I'm going to go stay at a friend's house. She can stay here. She has to leave in the morning and go to her house. In that night when I left, I think she continued to drink. She calls my father's answering machine and I think leaves a Oscar-worthy performance of just, my son resents me. He hates me. You have to acknowledge him. You have to read the articles about him. He lives on Mulholland Drive. I'm in his house right now. He did it all on his own. All he wants to know is, no, you please. And I think my dad's, they weren't married, but basically his wife, Chani, this amazing, she was actually an Olympic Korean badminton player. She hears it and I think tells my dad, like, John, you call your son. And then I get home the next day and my mom's still there. And I'm like, I can't believe you're still in my house after everything we just went through last night. And in my head, I'm just like, how dare you still be here? And she goes, your father called you. And I'm like, no, it's like, stop, just go to the desert. She goes, your father called you, Ashley. And I go to my iPhone and there's a Beverly Hills message. And I hey, Ashley, it's John Avildsen. I'd love to meet you, kiddo. You wanna go out and get breakfast or a coffee sometime this week? And I'm getting emotional, man. It's like pro wrestling, bro. Yeah. And he left me a message. And then my mom goes, I'm going to the desert now. And she left, and it was the light in the darkness. It was me calling the cops and saying, get the fuck away from me. Yeah. And her being disinhibited enough from being drunk to call my dad and leave that voicemail. And then me and my dad went out to, I never know how to say it, the Le Pain Cotidon, whatever the French breakfast place is. And we had this great meal. And then he was like, yeah, you should come over to my house. I was working on this movie, this like fun little rock and roll Faustian devil movie, American Satan. I had the script and I wanted to get his notes on it. And he goes, yeah, why don't you come over to my house tomorrow and I'll give you some. No, you know what he says? He goes, you guys will appreciate it. He goes, yeah, this is my address. Throw it over the fence, like the script. Oh, wow. Yeah, he goes, throw it over the fence. I go, this motherfucker. I hear all this. Throw it over the fence. But you know me? Like the artist and the businessman in me go, that's fine. I'm going to get notes. He's a fucking great filmmaker. Fuck this dude, whatever. Let me get the notes. Let's see what he had in notes on my script. And so I pull up And I'm getting ready to throw the script over the fucking fence. And sure enough, he starts opening the gate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he goes, park right over there. Come on in. I made you something. And we go in and we have a drink. We smoke a little pipe. I think he mixed like tobacco and pot a little bit. He was like the old school. Like, they mixed it. And we just start hitting it off, and we just stayed up all night long, like two kids. And it was like you're totally my fucking dad. Like I'm this weird hybrid of my mom and my dad, and here you are. And it was just like the most surreal thing. And then the first gift he gave me, which I should digitize this and do something with it so the world can just see it, was like the original Rocky script. Oh, really? And it was very different. It was much darker. Apollo Creed was like this Jamaican rude boy. There was like gambling in it. There was like all these. It was just a much darker, raw, gritty story before my dad started kind of doing all his notes to it. But it was just like, I could tell he didn't have like 10 of these. He was like, I think he was trying to overcompensate of like, all right, like I just met my son and what the fuck do I do now? Like, here's the original Rocky script. Like, I love you and I'm sorry and let's be friends. And I remember he said something, and then we can stop talking about all this if you want. I know I've been going forever, but he was was just like, he goes, this is no shade at like my half brothers, but like, they don't really talk to me for whatever reason. Like when I became friends with my dad, I would come to like, Christmas dinner or his birthday. And it's like, hey, here's the circus freak, like a strange bastard son. Like I'm here. Hi, everyone. My sister was great. My little sister, who's got a different mom than my older half brothers. She was great. But the other half brothers, there was always this like, and I think it's because I became very successful on my own and I was the rejected one. And they grew up with all the bells and whistles, and maybe they didn't get whatever level of success or monetary gain, whatever it was, but there's definitely always this thing. And I tried to figure it out, but there was always a thing. And my dad, I remember he says, of course, my one son who's living in the Hollywood Hills and did it all on his own. And, you've sold all these records and you're making your own movies already and all these things. He goes, of course I don't meet you until the third act of my life. He goes, it's just like it was written like this. And now we have such limited time to even share together. Cause he was like 80. Yeah. And it was just I'll never forget that when he's called it. Of course I don't meet you till my third act of my life, But yeah, to make it a little more lighthearted, I remember like my mom would like show me like once I was like old enough to really understand what was going on, she would like show me these letters. She was like writing my dad, and I remember there was one. She was like, John, this isn't a scene in one of your movies that you can just edit out. He lives here. He exists. You need to, when I was like a little kid, there's actually an episode of Larry King. I should just put this on the internet. Maybe it'll help bring more awareness to the movie. But like she went on Larry King and they were talking about it. Like, should a father have to like support or acknowledge or anything a child born out of wedlock that's like clearly in a much different echelon, of living standards and all that. And I went back and watched it as an adult, got emotional. My mom was like, I don't even care about the money. If he would just be a dad to Ashley, that's all I really want. Yeah. And then Larry King put me over. He held up a little headshot of me at like 10. He goes, even not for my own ego. Why wouldn't you want to acknowledge this kid? Look how cute he is. So that always stuck with me. But anyway, that's how I met my dad, man. Hopefully that we get a moment out of that. Dude. Sell some fucking tickets this weekend. Yeah.
Well, that was a great story, man.
That was awesome, dude.
And you got to at least spend some time in that third act with him.
We did. We became very close. And there's actually a photo, I think it's from 2016, me, Jim Ross, and my dad, and then JR's manager, Barry Bloom, who reps a lot of wrestling talent. We all went out to Soho House in West Hollywood and was basically like, hey, let's talk about this movie and this book. And I remember me and my dad both was reading it on our own, and we were like, I was like, let's read it independently of each other, underline all of our favorite like lines and scenes and moments, and then let's compare and see Like if we're picking a lot of the same things. And sure enough, like it was like 9 out of 10. We're like, yep, that scene's great. That scene's great. He loved the fact, because my dad didn't know anything about pro wrestling. He's like, wait a second. Sometimes the ref is in on it. Sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
And then again, this is just everyone out there that's an artist that puts yourself out for judgment. Just remember, there's always going to be people that say mean things. There was this one reviewer, like the worst review the movie got was like, and this writing, he literally says, no bigger than a pint of piss. Like ridiculous from Avildsen to even write that. And I'm like, that's literally a line word for word from the book that like Billy Wolf was known to say. And I just thought it was interesting that he said, you're no bigger than a pint of piss.
I could just make that up?
Yeah. And my dad, I remember me and my dad goes, that's so funny. No bigger than a pint of piss. He goes, that's going to sound funny. And we both liked it. And of course, this reviewer like tries to say, Ash wrote that, like that's a stupid saying, and I'm like, dude, I literally just took it from the book. That was me like paying homage to the dialogue that the author, had found from research for Billy. So anyway, but yeah, we started. He was still alive when we started working on. In fact, the two other people that the film is dedicated to at the end is Jim Ross's wife, who had the motorcycle or moped accident.
Jan, right?
Yeah, Jan. She was amazing because she was there with JR when he first told me about the book, and we went out in Vegas together had this great breakfast and spent all this time talking about it. And then Kelly, Wendy Cope and Kelly Cope. So Mildred's great-granddaughter. Mildred's granddaughter came to the Newport Beach premiere. I wish we had her on film. I mean, she was just so emotional. She covered in tears. She was so appreciative and so happy with how it came out. But her daughter was who I was originally dealing with, and she was a teenager. And I'm embarrassed that I don't remember the specific disease because it's a very, very unique, like bone disease where your bones almost kind of like twist in your spine and stuff. And it's like literally like your body can like twist. I'm gonna have to call her mom and ask what it was called because I hate not being able to reference it. But she had passed also when we were still developing the screenplay, and she was the one I originally did the deal with and was so excited about it. And she literally kind of had an accident where her like spine, she kind of just like split as a young, and it was really, really sad. And it's one of those things where it's like, my dad would always say anytime I was trying to get something done, and this with projects, when you're trying to get something off the ground, no matter what you're trying to work on, set the podcast show up, get the movie made, like, build the garage, whatever it is you're like trying to do. It's like, he would always say like, we're not getting any younger, kiddo, as in like time's going by. And one of the heaviest things for me with Queen of the Ring is just thinking about everything that's transpired from the day I read the book to say this should be a movie till now, including 3 people that were all so close to the story, all dead. Like, we're also kind of at the age now where like death is just all around us, man.
Absolutely.
It's like there's always people just dying. That's why I try and just remind, myself, like every day you wake up and you got your health and you get to do something cool like this is nothing short of a miracle. I'm sitting here with you guys on a Wednesday talking about pro wrestling and getting emotional about my family. Like this is like amazing.
On a Wednesday.
On a Wednesday. And I got a little kiddo now, and he's probably gonna, once he's old enough to understand, he'll find this on YouTube and he'll be like, wow. So Izzy, when you're out there, whenever you're old enough, I love you, buddy. You are the light of my life, and I am so proud to be your father. And I can't wait to see what happens with him, man. He's actually plays a little baby.
Nice.
Here's a fun little inside thing. So I shot a baby before in a TV show. And so for everyone out there wondering, whenever you're shooting a baby, you normally have twins because you can only shoot a small child or a baby for so many minutes in a scene, and then you got to switch it out because there's actually rules. There's unions, not in wrestling. I don't,
Right. The same baby from last time.
So again, we're an indie film, and we're like, if we get a real baby, or if we hire a baby, we're gonna have twins. We're gonna have to put up the parents. It's gonna be so much more money and time. I was like, we're gonna use our kid.
Absolutely.
And we'll shoot him out. He's going to be great. And the mom will be right, side of the
That's
set.
Solid.
And so we shot him, and he was great. And man, it's so funny, like seeing kids grow up. I don't even know who taught him this, but he lined up his trucks and he made like a set. Okay. Like he had like his like Tonka truck and the garbage truck and the fire truck, and he lines them all up, and he goes, He goes, Daddy, trucks. I go, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And he set him up like a set, like a scene. He goes, I'm a movie star. And I'm just like, where did this come from? Who even taught you that phrase?
He's just watching, man.
Dude, they just pick up everything.
Yeah,
they pick up everything.
I my daughter, when she was 2, the first time she like started watching TV with me, it was Macho Man versus Crush. And I was like, wow, look at her sitting up, paying attention. You know, that was just a big thing for me. And then later on in life, we're watching Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss. And she goes, Daddy, I want to do that. Oh, and I was like, shut the fuck up. Like, you're lying. Like, there's no way.
How old was she when she said that?
This is probably about five or six.
Oh,
and I'm like, yo, listen, okay, we need to do this right now. So we go into the living room. Like, my sister's there. I'm like, yo, I know you heard that. And so, like, she gets behind the curtain. I play the music. She comes out. She starts talking on her little karaoke machine. She fought her auntie for like 30 minutes. Put on a 30-minute classic. And it was a lot of pinfalls. She doesn't really get the ins and outs. But yeah, she whenever she sees Bianca, when she loved seeing Alexa Bliss come back, she digs it. And she naturally loves gymnastics. So like, I'm like, all right, yeah, let's work on these tumbles today. Yeah, let's get these going. But yeah, bro, I'm gonna have a future champion of the world.
Oh, that is so awesome. She just naturally gravitated towards it like that.
And because I've been trying to put a basketball in her hand since she was born. Well, and she's like, yo, get this shit out of here.
But they say you covet what you see, right? Your son, he's on set, so that's what he's seeing. Your daughter, she's watching wrestling with you, so that's what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So, this has been amazing, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you
This is
so
one
much.
of my favorite interviews that we've done. You are our first non-wrestling interview ever.
Wow.
So we appreciate
So it's normally just wrestlers.
Yeah, like this is all we have. This is such an amazing opportunity. Like there was no way that we saw the film, we enjoyed the film, we had to be involved in promoting it some kind of way. To hear the journey and the process just makes us fall in love with it more. Anything you need from NCW, we got you.
And we didn't even mention that you were talking about Mildred talking to Vince McMahon Sr. I was watching the movie, and the guy playing Vince McMahon Sr. would look really familiar, but I couldn't place him.
He's about 20 pounds heavier in that scene, and it's all right on his it's all that crafty and stress eating. You know what's funny about stress eating?
So that was him, by the way, folks, if you don't know. He portrayed Vince McMahon Sr. in the movie.
I remember asking my guy, I'm like, hey, like, how come when I get really stressed out, I just gravitate towards like pizza and frozen yogurt, and
it's not just you.
And he goes, well, it's called comfort food for a reason. It literally creates serotonin in the brain. So when you eat cheese and bread and sugar, it's literally making a chemical reaction in your brain that like makes you feel better. Now, after a little while, you don't feel so good, but that immediate hit, it's literally chemical reactions in the brain, which is like, I really resonated when Brady Corbet, I think how you say, the director of The Brutalist, he was like drinking a beer and doing this interview, and he looks much different than he did a handful of years ago before he went full on into directing and making these indie films. And he made me feel so much better. He was just like, people don't realize when you're trying this big, ambitious movie to make, as an indie, he goes, we gain weight, we lose hair, we do this. He's just like, you can see like he just went through the gauntlet of hell to get it made. And he's obviously still a great looking guy, but when you see the differences from when he started directing to when he was just, I forget what he did before, I don't know if he was acting or what, but like you really realize like it's grueling, man. Yeah. Like I have so much respect for anyone out there that's doing independent productions and putting their heart and soul and their health on the line, because it is not easy.
Oh, yeah.
Man. No. It is like you have to will these things into existence. Everything goes wrong constantly, and you just keep fighting. And you have that spirit that we love. Back to Damaris, you have to believe you're a winner, whatever inside, and whatever the world tells you. Oh, nope, you're a loser. You're a loser. You're not going to get there. You go, nope. I already know I'm a winner. I don't care how they're booking the match. Yeah. I don't care how they're booking my career. I'm a fucking winner.
Yep.
And that's what I do. And that's what Damaris meant.
Well, dude, you obviously accomplished all of that with Queen of the Ring. Everybody out there, make sure you go see it. wherever you can find it in theaters, man. Support this film so we can get more wrestling in the world. Right. We know that's what it's all about for us fans at the end of the day, is getting more people to recognize this thing that we love, this business that we love. And Queen of the Ring does just that. Ash, dude, thank you for joining NCW. You're welcome anytime. TJ, can you do me a favor?
Yeah, man.
Can you tell them where to find us?
I'm going to let them know that. So remember, guys, you can always follow us on all the socials. There's No Contest on Twitter, No Contest Wrestling Podcast on Instagram. And, of course, all of our videos, including this one, will be on the Rich Eisen Show YouTube page in the next few hours. So Queen of the Ring, it's a great movie, great story. Check it out. Support our guy here. He's a friend of the show. He's our first non-wrestler that makes the Hall of Fame. So it's all good.
Yeah. Oh, and a side note, I usually tell you guys that I'll see you next Wednesday. We'll see you Monday.
That's right.
That's right. News. We're changing our days for a little bit, for quite a bit, actually, a couple months. So now you'll be able to catch No Contest Wrestling on Mondays. It's going to switch up the dynamic a little bit.
Hopefully not.
The Monday Night Wars, huh? You're going to have to
you'll still get us, bro.
And next week, Raw will be at noon. So we'll be able to watch a little bit of Raw before we start. I'm going to have it on. We'll make...
Look at God. Won't he do it?
We'll be reacting live, I think, next week.
So we're going to figure out something special for
Monday,
you guys.
Check us out.
We'll see you guys beginning of the next week.
Peace.
Check us out.